Good afternoon, class. Our class is about the introduction. This is your module 1, planning, production, and evaluation of instructional materials. Okay, so we'll focus on the basic concepts. Okay, so let's take a look at the learning outcomes this afternoon. You'll be able to discuss the principles of effective instruction, okay, and know the basic concepts of instructional materials, planning, um, developing, or designing, and then evaluation. And then your learning activity number 2, to create an infographic or a schematic diagram of the concepts in instructional materials. Let's begin. So I would like you to watch this during your free time. Here is a video or clip. Okay, this is very essential, especially for those who are teaching social studies and social sciences. So after watching the video, you can just watch that during your free time. I can also send you the link later after my discussion. So what are the instructional materials that are useful in your classes? So there's no need to submit, you just have to reflect on the video that you will be learning. You can actually subscribe to this video if you really want to know more about some instructional materials that you can use in your classes. So to give us just a background, instructional materials. So it's any teaching tool or resources that are useful in teaching. Okay, so based on study.com, um, some samples of the traditional learning material, or instructional materials, are workbooks and textbooks. So although we call these traditional, these are still very useful, especially this time. Okay, modules can also be instructional materials. And then for digital, you can also consider YouTube for videos and others. Now, if you're going to consider planning, basically, I associate planning with designing. So you still have to generate or conceptualize the material that you have in mind. Okay, but then next week, we're going to focus on the theories. So we have a framework in designing. So we're still in the planning stage or designing. And then once you have the design or the blueprint, you can begin with the production or producing. So this time you are going to develop, okay, the instructional material. And then it can be processed in developing. And then part of the development is the evaluation. So it's a process. There is a monitoring. So ideally, okay, for writers of textbooks and other instructional materials, they would solicit feedback from the users. The stakeholders are usually the teachers or the students. So to provide probably assessment still at the beginning, but the evaluation would be, we may say, 2 to 3 years, no, from the okay, the moment that this instructional material is already used in actual classes. Okay, so the modules that you're using now in your classes, in the basic education and the course package in HEIs, or here in CT we call that course package, there would still be a committee for review, okay, and then probably someday the authors can apply for a copyright. Okay, so for part of the intellectual property rights. Okay, soon, no, if that would become a workbook or textbook in the future, or for modules. Okay, so there, um, nothing is wasted, no, in every effort that you do. There will be rewards soon. And then the principles of effective instruction, according to Tabada and Bandia 2015, I actually have here a hard copy of the book. I'll just share with you some principles that can be very useful in effective instructions as we're talking about instructional materials. So the basic concept is instruction, but we have to ask ourselves, what are the basic principles? So our role as teachers is to establish learning environments that foster the defined outcomes for your learners. And then principle number 1, assess prior knowledge. Yes, so here We should know where our students are so that we can have an idea what instructional materials are very applicable to them. Okay, let's say now probably preparing modules for the students who are in the remote areas, those who cannot access internet. We also do that now in CTU. We have prepared course package, and students can still independently work on it if they already have the offline copies or the hard copies. Basically offline, they just have to download. I instructed my students to download the course package during the first week of the semester, so that if there's a problem in internet connection, they can just always look at the course package. Principle number two, consider individual differences. Okay, so it's quite related not to number one. You should know where your students are, and no, their learning styles, their individual differences, or even at the first week, we can let them answer just like what you're doing. No? I let you answer a questionnaire to know the tools that you use in teaching. Okay, you can also do that no, with your students. So you know their personality, general attitude, knowledge of a subject, and others. And then principle number three, yes, so you have to state objectives. So by knowing the learners, you also have to know the objectives. Let's say here in our module, we also have here the learning outcomes. So I'm using learning outcomes because I try to adhere to the outcomes-based education. So instead of writing state objectives, so learning outcomes. And then number four, develop metacognitive skills. So let your students monitor. So remember, no, you have here your directory, monitoring form, and the attendance. So it's part no, of being accountable no, to your independent learning. So you monitor your own progress. So you can check if you're already done with your task. So evaluating and adjusting. So let students become independent learners as well. And then provide social interaction. So now that we are in remote learning or in online mode, um, we see to it that we are still present. So according to a professor no, in University of the Philippines Open University, when I attended a training on flexible learning uh, organized by UP. Okay, so even if we are not around, we have ways on how to keep in touch with our students. So by having this concept of teacher presence in online and distant e-learning. Okay, so by answering their questions, using Facebook Messenger if you have consultations. Okay, in our class we have no. I have put in the course outline the consultation for my undergraduate students. I put there Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. So if they have some concerns, they can directly send a message, or in Google Classroom I can reply. No, if they're able to ask a question. So let them feel that we are still around even if we don't see one another. And then principle number six, incorporate realistic context. So yes, so if possible, we really have to apply the relevance theory. So realistic, and it's quite related to principle number seven, engage students in relevant practice. So well, have you noticed that perhaps you also have questions no, in your classes that talk about COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so to relate, they can also reflect, share their experiences related to the pandemic and their coping mechanisms. And then principle numbers eight, offer frequent, time, and constructive feedback. Teachers' feedback, electronic messages. So through email, students can also email or send a message or even text message. And then the scoring system. So rubric can also be very transparent. You have to present it or show it no, in the guidelines perhaps. Okay, and then it's also very important to add no, the due date so that students won't feel anxious. Okay, because students nowadays, especially college students, I've noticed they are very vulnerable. They are very sensitive. to the point that they um, uh, feel anxious, or even to the point of depression, or even to the point of quitting school. So if possible, we have to be very nice, very kind to them. And then to synthesize, there are 8 principles of effective instruction: assess prior knowledge, consider individual differences, state objectives, develop metacognitive skills, provide social interaction, incorporate realistic contexts, engage students in relevant practice. Okay, offer frequent time and constructive feedback. So it can be a balance, no, of the strengths and the things that need to improve by the students. Okay, now let's have the learning activity number 2. This is a continuation of learning activity number 1 in the previous lesson, wherein you're able to watch, no, a webinar and then reflect on it based on your practice in teaching. Okay, so I put here the date, to date October 17. So now, no, until midnight. Anyway, you have more time for this. This is asynchronous, so after listening to my screen recording, you can now be ready, to accomplish a task. So read this short story on digital instructional material. So you can find it here. All you have to do is just click this. You can try to click or try to. Okay, we'll see if this will lead you to the. I hope no. This will lead you to the link. So it's very relevant because nowadays we don't just focus on books and textbooks, especially uh, the hard copies. Okay, we use digital instructional materials. All you have to do is read this, and then you can also download no free electronic document if you want, or read online. So I will go back to the slideshow. Support the, okay, first is read, and then second, write a short reaction. So last time you wrote your reflection, this time you will write your reaction, whether you agree or disagree with the results and recommendations. Then support your reaction. Okay, use only 3 to 5 sentences, and then hand in your answers in the assignment box. Okay, I will put there later no assignment to box of our Google Classroom. Okay, and then create a schematic diagram or an infographic in demonstrating the basic concepts. Okay, sorry, this is supposed to be um, activity number 3. Okay, so sorry, no, I wasn't able to edit this earlier. And then references. So there are 2 activities for you to accomplish today. So that's all for today. Okay, enjoy. No, take note that for learning activity number 3, since this is an infographic or schematic diagram, I am going to give you more time for this. Okay, bye. God bless.